Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Let's talk about Gennady Golovkin for a moment. Now, boxing really is rock, paper, scissors, right? Styles make fights. Certain styles match up well against other styles. Now, lateral movement from the outside, behind a jab, with foot speed, where an opponent tries to use length, right? Tries to maintain, let's say, an arm's length between he and an opponent, tries to lean back, right? An Ali style of fighting. In my opinion, loses to Gennady Golovkin. Right? I just don't think you can beat Golovkin going back. Now, what that means is that Golovkin is going to run roughshod through most of the elite fighters in the sport in the area code of his weight class. Right? People are talking about him taking on WBO super middleweight champion Gilberto Ramirez, who is unbeaten. Right? I don't see how Ramirez wins that fight. Right, I think Ramirez loses the fight by KO. Right, Ramirez's last 4 fights have gone the distance. I thought Ramirez got badly tested in the Vlasov fight, and I think Ramirez is a guy who, against an Arthur Abraham, is able to simply use superior foot speed, lateral movement, to move away from him while hitting him with occasional shots. Right. Arthur Abraham's not a guy who can deal with length and movement. Golovkin, that's his game. Understand, while you're an arm's length away feeling that you're, out of danger, you're literally in the middle of Golovkin's danger zone. Golovkin wants to extend his arms. Right? He can hit you with power from distance. He's willing to take some of your shots because he's convinced that he hits harder than you. And if this turns into a shootout where punches are landed, he believes he wins because his punches will have more of an effect on you than your punches on him. Other fighters spend a lot of time, right, trying to come up with defensive moves. Gilberto Ramirez has a great defensive move where he pivots on his front foot, right? And so he's over here, you get too close, he'll pivot and move away, right? So your punches are missing, and he's set up a different set of angles and stuff like that. Understand, that's not who Golovkin is. Right? Rather than rely on defensive moves for defensive purposes, what Golovkin does is he relies on offensive moves and counter moves that accomplish the same thing. For example, let's just talk about Golovkin's left hand. Golovkin, a slugger, very high KO percentage, has an excellent, not a very good, he has an excellent jab. It's excellent, right? It'll bust up your face. It'll hit you right here. Just ask David Lemieux, right? It'll flush you out of the pocket. He has an excellent jab. Obviously, he can throw an excellent left hook up top with power, right? He's accurate with the punch. He's not a one-handed fighter. I know Wade goes down off some right hands, but if you focus on Golovkin's right hand, right, he'll finish you. He'll end the fight with his left. He hits hard. So let's say I'm fighting Golovkin, and let's say the jab is coming down the pike, so I move a little bit out of the pocket. I move a little bit to the side. Right? Now let's say Golovkin comes in and he looks like he's going to throw a left up top. How do I know if it's the jab that's going to come right down the middle or it's a hook that's going to come a little bit outside right where I'm moving? Well, Golovkin now, and every time I see Golovkin, he adds more and more to his game. Golovkin now has a left uppercut right up the middle. So let's, for a moment, think in 3 dimensions. Let's say I'm leaning back in the pocket, right? Making sure that if he throws a jab up top, it barely grazes me or it ends right here, right? Let's say I'm leaning back and away. So if he throws that left hook, maybe there's a chance I can roll with the left hook, right? So I'm leaning upper body. If he throws that uppercut, and if he decides to hit me in the solar plexus, my body's not leaning as much as my top's leaning. Golovkin has that capability. And here's the kicker. And I truly mean this. Golovkin's left hook to the body is the best left hook to the body in boxing, right? Golovkin can tuck it in the middle of whatever other punches he's throwing. It's devastating. Think Sam Langford. Kill the body and the head will follow, right? I'm telling you, guys who think they're going to be outside moving around on Golovkin get hit in the body a few times and then they end up being a stationary, as Dominic Wade was yesterday, right? Golovkin takes away your legs by hitting you with lethal body shots, right? Now, I haven't even gotten to his right hand. I'm just telling you, Golovkin's left, you don't know what punch he's throwing because he has so many of them that he throws effectively. And because you understand the punching power, right? Golovkin can knock you out. Golovkin, when he's on a roll, can knock you out early. Because you understand the punching power. In my opinion, that makes back foot fighters working behind a jab and movement even that much more cautious. Right? So Golovkin has a lesser need for defense. Right? Because he doesn't have, at least on his left side, he doesn't have holes in his game where you can say, okay, this jab, I'm just going to lean away. You don't have that option. Right? And you can't drop a hand and just assume, hey, I'm too far away from Golovkin for him to hurt me. Because Golovkin has what I call ring coverage. Golovkin will leap in from distance and he'll knock you out. Right? What's interesting in this fight? The second knockdown. Well, first, let's talk about the first knockdown. End of the first round. You're going to see the problem with Golovkin. Right? Wade leans forward. Now, Wade's not an inside fighter who's throwing short punches. Right? That's the only way to survive on Golovkin. You have to prevent Golovkin from extending his arms. I know it's counterintuitive. Guy with a big punch, what idiot would decide that the way to beat him is to fight him in a phone booth? I'm just telling you that's the only way to have a chance on this guy. Now, Wade on the first knockdown's relatively close to Golovkin. You're going to notice the punch hits Wade almost in the back of the head. Right? The way Wade might have avoided that punch is by leaning forward. Because Golovkin, since he likes to extend his arms, needs a little bit of a curve, right, to land that punch when he's not throwing his left jab, which is straight. right? So you need to be inside of Golovkin's punches. So then we get to the second knockdown, right? Golovkin, the secret to that knockdown, people are calling it a right hand. Folks, Golovkin throws a textbook perfect left uppercut that sets up the right hand. Dominic Wade has nowhere to go but to the canvas. The left hand comes in, freezes Wade for a second, and then you get the right hand that drops him. Right? Golovkin's left is simply too dangerous. Right? I think Golovkin would beat Gilberto Ramirez at 168. I don't think a fight against Billy Joe Saunders is competitive. I think Golovkin walks through him. Saunders doesn't hit hard enough to stop Golovkin. Right? Golovkin eventually would figure out that he could walk down Saunders. Right? You wouldn't have the start that you had to the Saunders-Andy Lee fight, where both guys are throwing no punches because they're worried about the other guy's response. Golovkin hits so hard and has so many punches that he could operate on autopilot. In other words, he's figured out that he can come forward. And if you start keying on his left hook up top, he can then drop a shoulder and throw an uppercut with that left right down the middle. Right? He's throwing punches to see which way you move. I think it would be too overpowering for Billy Joe Saunders. Now, Canelo has a really good overhand right. Canelo's only chance, and I mean his only chance, against Golovkin, because he can't box with Golovkin. Right? Canelo's a counterpuncher who likes to be a little bit outside. He can't box with Golovkin. His only chance is to figure out how to throw either that overhand right out the gate. In other words, no setup. Lead with power shots. Or to hit Golovkin with a short left hook like he hit Carlos Baldomir with. Right? If he tries to box with Triple G, if Canelo tries to box with Triple G, that's a short night. He's going to get knocked out. Right? Canelo's style is Vladimir Klitschko's style. It's too robotic, in my opinion, just way too robotic and too predictable for a guy like this. I think Triple G would walk through Saul Alvarez. Right? Alvarez would almost have to do a Roy Jones. Walk around and then just come in throwing left hooks up top. Right? I don't think Alvarez throws short enough punches to lean forward and to stay on Golovkin's chest. Right? The only guy at 168 pounds, in my opinion, who would have a chance at beating Golovkin. And understand, I'm one weight class up. Golovkin's the middleweight champion. Right? That's how dangerous the guy is. Right? You can predict knockouts in his fights. The only guy who has a chance on him, and I'm not sure if this guy hits hard enough, is James DeGale. Right? The problem, though, is while DeGale has the inside game, right? While DeGale is one of the few fighters who could get Golovkin to back up, right? Understand, a major part of DeGale's game is his outside game, right? So DeGale would have to give up a lot of what he does effectively to turn the fight into a phone booth fight, right? If I'm DeGale, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but if I'm DeGale, I'd rather go to 175. I think the Gale beats Adonis Stevenson. I think the Gale can run the table at 175 with the possible exception of Andre Ward if Andre gets back to his A game. Right? In my opinion, that's still an open question. Right? But if I'm the Gale, I'm not sure there's enough in it for me to risk everything against Golovkin when there's so many other big names that I can walk through in the division above me. Right? In other words, I can help my legacy more by taking on bigger fighters than by fighting this guy who's dangerous, who people are going to view as having come up from the middleweight division. Let me say this too. People need to be afraid. They need to be very afraid. Right? I'm telling you that as good as Golovkin has looked at 160 pounds, and he's looked great, folks. Right? He's already, in my opinion, put himself on the list of dominant middleweight champions. Right? The guy's unbeaten. Look at his KO percentage. I'll agree, he needs to fight some bigger names than Dominic Wade. Right? He needs to be tested. Right? Hearns had Hagler, had Leonard, right? Those guys had each other. He needs to find real competition. But let me just say, if he leaves the middleweight division, and if he goes to 168 and then decides he's going to go to 175, I'm just telling you that his fight style and his body attack, right? That left hook to the body, that's the best left hook to the body in the sport. Right? His body attack and his front foot game, and the fact that guys like Adonis Stevenson like to fight from the outside. They don't want to fight you up close. So Stevenson would be right in Golovkin's wheelhouse. Right? The fact that Andres Fonfara really doesn't have that powerful a core. He's a slender guy. Right? And the fact that Golovkin is this vicious a body puncher. The fact that Sergei Kovalev has had problems in fights. He's been down in fights. Right? He gets hit in fights. Right? And the fact that Golovkin has already sparred with Kovalev and knows Kovalev. Right? I think Golovkin, over time, we'll see how it plays out, might be even more dangerous at 175 pounds than he is at 160 pounds. Right? I'd take Golovkin today over light heavyweight champion Adonis Stevenson. Right? Today, I would take him over Adonis Stevenson. Right? His punching power is going to carry. As they say, I know Golovkin's in his 30s. Right? But they say that power is the last to go. Right? Power is the last to go. Golovkin is not relying on his reflexes. His game is the kind of game that's going to age well. He's relying on move, counter move. Right? He's throwing hooks. You start to, guard against the hooks. He comes down Main Street with an uppercut with the same hand. Instead of hitting you with a hook high, he hits you with a hook low. Right? That's his game. It's not based on reflexes. Right? It's not based on hand speed. Things that diminish over time. It's based on extending his arms, power, varying his shots. Right? Setting you up. Having you afraid of hooks. Flushing you out of the pocket with a jab. luring you into his power zone. Golovkin has several more years of dominance left. What you're in right now is the middle of a Hall of Famer's career, where he's still on the top of his game. Now, this will sound completely ridiculous, but I thought Dominic Wade gave a good performance yesterday. He starts out the fight, he's flashing a jab, he's changing angles, he's moving, he moves back on Golovkin. The minute you saw him move back, the minute you understood that he had to extend his arms and that his punching power wasn't as strong as Golovkin's, and I'm talking about a guy with a greater than 60% KO percentage in Dominic Wade, you understood, okay, he's on the clock. Tick, 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 tick. He's down at the end of round one. Fought 2.5 good minutes. Fought 2.5 good minutes in round one. One slip, he's down at the end of round one. Round two comes out. Let me tell you, I'm not sure if I've ever seen a guy whisper more to a referee when the ref says, do you want to continue, than Dominic Wade did after the second knockdown, right? The ref looks at him and says, do you want to continue? Most guys would, say, yeah. They'd even nod their heads, right? So you're in the crowd and you're like, oh, okay, he wants to continue, right? It's like, yeah. Here, the ref says to Dominic Wade, do you want to continue? Golovkin hit so hard that Dominic Wade whispers to him. Ref doesn't quite hear it. Understand boxing culture, right? You don't want to be a quitter, right? You don't want to look like you've gotten off the canvas and then, the ref says, do you want to continue? And you're like, nah, I don't want to continue. You don't want to be that guy, right? If the ref calls the fight and you don't want to continue, but you haven't told the ref you don't want to continue, okay, that's all right. You could say, hey, why'd the ref stop the fight? Right here, I'm just telling you. Wade gets up off the canvas. I commend him the first time. The ref says to him twice, do you want to continue? Dominic Wade's whispering. He's like, whispering. That's how hard Golovkin hits. Guys are getting off the canvas, and in my opinion, they're hoping the ref stops the fight. Right? They're hoping the ref stops the fight. Right? You get hit like that, and, you're already outplayed where you're thinking, man, I thought this dude was going to throw an uppercut, and he just hit me in the ribs with the left hook to the body from hell. Right? You're there trying to catch your breath. You don't, you're looking at Golovkin. He's too far away. You say, this guy's too far away to hit me. Then you're hurt. Then you're dazed. Then you're confused. Then you understand. The middleweight division, I believe, already understands this man. They know he's bad. I'm telling you, you want to hear a guy sound, a little bit uncertain about himself? Just watch interviews of Oscar De La Hoya, Canelo's promoter. When they say, hey, when's Canelo going to fight Golovkin? Right? You're talking about a big money fight. Right? Oscar will say, hey, wait, there's no rush. What's the rush? Right? What's the rush is, hey, both guys have shares of the middleweight belt. Right? What's the rush is, doesn't Golovkin have a deal with the people behind Canelo's title where he's already stepped aside for a fight? Now he wants to fight Canelo, right? No one's in a rush to fight Canelo. I hear in the UK they're saying, oh, if Canelo doesn't fight Triple G, then Billy Joe Saunders is going to step up. I'm just telling you, after yesterday's performance, don't be surprised if Billy Joe decides not to step up against this opponent. There are other guys out there, Danny Jacobs and stuff like that. I'm just telling you, guys aren't in a rush to fight Golovkin because they understand the mission involved. This guy keeps getting better and better. I'm just telling you, his power would carry. I believe he beats Gilberto Ramirez right now. I believe he beats Adonis Stevenson right now. Right? You would need to be, as I've said before, a Marvin Hagler, a Joe Louis, a guy who can get up on him and throw extremely short punches. Right? A Rocky Marciano. Right? A guy who, can get low. Right? You need to take away some of these headshots and stuff like that. You need to get low. You need to be able to get inside. Then you need to be able to throw short punches. Right? Prime Mike Tyson. That's the fight style that works here. But if you're on your back foot, moving behind a jab, right, lateral movement, right, trying to create distance between you and Golovkin, you're backing right into his hot zone. Good luck with that. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Again, let me just say, Golovkin's left. Excellent jab. Excellent left uppercut. Excellent left up top. Ring distance on it. The best left hook to the body in the sport. That's what you're dealing with from just Golovkin's left hand. He drops Wade yesterday multiple times with his right. Right? If you're a back foot fighter, how are you going to survive? I hope you leave that strategy in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.